an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Veronica Mars, Season 1, Episode 1, Pilot. This episode is sponsored by Nancy J. Smith, and the deal was, with the next sponsor, that if I liked Veronica Mars, they would sponsor Episode 2. If I did not like it, they would choose something else. Well, I liked it a lot. Welcome to Spoil Me. All right, so welcome everybody. This is another live recording on Crowdcast, and pardon me for being a little drawn and pale and tired looking because I just got back from Comic-Con yesterday, and I am wiped out. But it was really fun, and I am recovering, and everything is fine. So let's talk about this episode because I'm laughing so hard inside. I did not know that Veronica Mars of the show Veronica Mars is a high school student. I knew nothing about this show. All I knew was that she does investigating and like detective work. But I had no idea that she was supposed to be so young that half of the people are still in school and that a high school is like the backdrop of so much of the story. So that was a big surprise. And when the episode begins and she's saying, "This is my school." First of all, is Kristen Bell a vampire? Because she looks exactly the same as she does in like The Good Place. I mean, it's like her hair is different. She's got a tiny bit more like baby fat to her cheeks. That's it. She looks the same. And she starts talking, and her voice is the thing that to me sounds different. She sounds so much younger that I didn't realize it was even her talking. So when she starts off, "This is my school," I thought, oh, maybe Veronica Mars isn't even Kristen Bell. I quickly was disabused of that notion. And I found this to be kind of interesting because there are like palm trees all over the place. Clearly, this school is meant to be set near LA or somewhere. Maybe it's Florida. You know what? There are palms in Florida, but I kind of, because of the money, assumed LA, somewhere around there. And when my senior year in high school, I went to a boarding school in California, and it was a school that wealthy kids went to, or kids like me who got like a full boat ride. And I would hear stories of the original high schools that some of these kids went to before they moved to the boarding school. And the stories sounded like this. Either you were a millionaire or you worked for millionaires. And like my roommate, her father wrote the Wonder Years, that kind of money. And Denzel Washington's kids went to her school. So when this started off, at first I was like, oh, weird. And then I realized that I kind of knew this world a little bit, just, secondhand. And I also don't think because I didn't realize how young Veronica's character was going to be, I didn't think about what a formative time it would be in her life. And she has gone through some shit. And we find that out throughout the episode. There's like bits and pieces dropped here and there. I'm going to kind of start with instead of going beat by beat of the episode itself, I'm going to talk more straight through time-wise what happened. Because we see a lot of flashbacks of her. And it's really touching because she is so clearly thinking about things in a simpler way when she's younger. And she's got short, choppy hair now. She clearly isn't taking the same care with her appearance or what she's wearing the way that she used to. And I don't want to say that kind of thing is a an outright sign of like depression, because it's certainly possible in that period of your life that you could be trying to be someone you're not, and then realize that's not you and you were kind of faking it, and that you don't want to do that anymore. I don't know Veronica well enough yet to know whether that's the case here and she was being someone she wasn't, or if she's kind of being someone she isn't now because she's just trying to blend in and attract less attention. But she was dating this dude, and she says he abruptly cut things off with her without warning. And the timing, when she tells us that first bit, that's right at the beginning of the episode. But then we find out all this other stuff happened. So I'm not sure if he broke up with her because of what happened with her father or not. But long story short, his sister was one of Veronica's best friends, and she says something to her while they're washing cars at something that she has a secret, and that's the last thing that Veronica ever hears from her lips because she turns up dead. And Veronica's father is the sheriff, and he believes her father killed her. And evidently, there's like no evidence to support this, and he goes after the father really hard. The father, who I may remind you, is the father of Veronica's boyfriend. So that's my theory, is that the boyfriend broke up with her because he couldn't believe what her father was doing to his family after already having lost his sister. The mother hates Veronica. I'm not sure if she has since the beginning or if it's since, all of this went down. But she turns up at Veronica's father's office looking to nail her husband to the wall for cheating. And Veronica is evidently like her dad's right-hand guy, which I'm going to do a little bit of Rashawn and Harry Potter and be like, adults, what are you doing? I totally get it. It's a TV show and this is how it's going to be, and that's fine, and I get that, and I'm willing to go with it, and I'm not even, but it has to be said at least once. That's crazy. What are you doing? Holy shit. What a terrible idea. And I love that this dude comes in with a file and is just kind of like, well, I wanted to talk to you. And she's like, my dad's in his office. And he's like, yeah, we all know what's really happening here. So there's no need to pretend that I need to speak to your dad. It's fine. So when Veronica goes out, he tells her, make sure you don't go without backup. And she says, I always do. And then later we find out backup is the dog's name, and that's hilarious. I love that joke. It's so goofy and it's like kind of corny, but I really love that joke. It took me a second because she's yelling backup and she's yelling it at the dog to get him to stop attacking someone. So for a second, I thought she was giving him an order, like back up. And then she says it again. She says, back up, stop. And I was like, oh my God, that's great. I love it. I love it. I love it. It just tickled me. So she goes to check out this dude, the father of her boyfriend. And I should really learn some names, but I'm so afraid of looking on IMDb. This is the only problem about doing solo shows, because you can get spoiled if you look at things too hard. So if you guys in the chat here want to feed me names at any point, that would be super helpful. Boyfriend is Duncan, says Megan. Okay, cool. So Duncan's dad, his dad is Jake. Dead girl is Lily. I remembered Lily because that's Harry Potter's mom's name, who also died before things even started. So that is a Mother Celeste. Mama Celeste. That's the mother's name? She's a Mama Celeste? That's what I'm going to call her from now on. That's how I'm going to say it every time, so get ready for that. And Veronica's dad is Keith. Okay, cool. We've got a working bit here. So Duncan's dad is evidently heading over to this hotel, this cheap, chintzy-looking hotel, and meeting up with a woman who doesn't leave the room, but Veronica takes photos of the plates. And when she brings this info to her father, he clams up and says that we're not going to pursue this, which she understandably is thrown by and decides to go looking into things herself and calls in somebody to help her run a plate using her father's the secretary from the sheriff's office, I guess, because it used to be her father's secretary, but no longer, using her accent because she's German. And she finds out, and I called this, as soon as her dad flipped out, I was like, okay, that's her mom. Her mom is the one meeting up with Jake, Duncan's dad. And this leads me to wonder if, and again, we're in the very preliminary stages. I don't have a lot of information, so I could be way off on this, but my guess here is that Jake was having an affair with Veronica's mom, and maybe Keith found out, and people who were in the know and knew maybe a little bit of what was going on decided that was enough for him to be biased and want Jake to be guilty of the murder, even though he wasn't. And I'm not even saying that he wasn't. I'm just saying that that's what other people think, that Jake is innocent, but Keith isn't thinking straight because he's so jealous because his wife was sleeping with this guy that he decides to try and nail him to the wall for a murder. But nobody has kind of thrown that in Veronica's face, and it seems like everybody in this world is totally fine with just saying shit to her that's really hurtful and awful. So it might very well not be the case at all, because it seems like people in this town, if they knew that kind of dirt, it would have gotten out. So who knows? Or maybe they were keeping it super duper quiet, and it nobody else is aware that that was part of the reason why he was going after Jake so hard, except for her mother and Jake himself, and obviously Keith. That's my guess, is that their love triangle somehow interfered with the investigation. So Lily's death, obviously she knew some shit. She was and from the way that she was behaving when she was talking to Veronica, she isn't aware at all that what she knows is valuable in any way. So, and I mean, when I say valuable, if you're excited about a secret, you know that it's juicy, but knowing it's juicy and knowing that it's something somebody's willing to kill to keep quiet is very different. So I feel kind of bad for Lily, because she's played by that actress from Mean Girls, the one who plays the dumb blonde stereotype. And I love her. I don't know why, but that actress is just whenever I see her in anything, I get kind of excited about it. I never did see Red Riding Hood, which I heard was really bad, but she's one of the only reasons I might have ever gone to see it. Amanda Seyfried. Seyfried? Thank you, Nancy. I'm not very helpful. But yeah, I love her, and I was super bummed to find out that she's the murder victim, and so we aren't going to be seeing her again. Unless we see some other flashbacks of her, kind of Pretty Little Liars style, because, their friend gets murdered, and then you wind up seeing her a ton, because there's nothing but flashbacks of all of her exploits, and you wind up finding out that she kind of was not a nice person and all this stuff. So we might wind up seeing more of her. But there's a whole other subplot going on here with Veronica and this boy. Give me a name check again, guys. That she finds taped to a flagpole, being mocked and having his photo taken by a bunch of people. Wallace. Well, that answers the question of where the fuck is Wallace. Here he is. And Megan read my mind. And Wallace did the wrong thing. And by wrong, I mean he did the right thing to the wrong people. He pressed an alarm when some bad dudes were shoplifting in the store he works at. And the police came, and then he tried to drop the charges and be no, never mind, it was a mistake. But they found the video, and they just decided to nail these guys anyway. And so he got taped, and the word snitch misspelled, I may add, was painted across his chest. So he is kind of indebted to Veronica because she's the one that comes up and winds up cutting him down, which I kind of like, both for the fact that she has the guts to do that and for the fact that she carries a knife with her, apparently. That's just a thing that she does, which, okay. Like, you know, there's a lot of schools where that wouldn't fly. She'd be searched and that would be taken away and that would be the end of that. But he winds up kind of befriending her, and the dudes who are after this kid strike a deal with her finally that if she gets them off, and I hate using that phrase, if she gets the charges dropped, then they will stop hassling Wallace. So she sets this elaborate thing up. And thank you, Agnes, for the name Logan. Logan was Lily's boyfriend at the time. And I'm going to go ahead and say that Logan killed Lily. I have nothing to support that except the fact that I hate him. And I hate him. The end. I just hate him so much. I think he has something to do with something. And what Veronica does is sets him up, puts a bong in his locker that explodes via a remote control and sets a fire. So he gets in trouble because it was discovered in his locker. It gets confiscated and sent to the police evidence room where it sets a fire. Everybody's distracted and the place is evacuated. And in the hubbub, a friend that she still has in the department because of her dad replaces the tape that is in the evidence room, the actual tape of these guys shoplifting, with a tape of a policeman soliciting a prostitute. And this leads to the charges getting dropped, which I call bullshit on, but I'm going, like, this is just such a thing in fiction a lot of the time, is that things don't really work the way that they would work in the real world. And if that's how it's going to be in this universe, then I'll accept that and that's fine. But it did catch me off guard that they start playing the evidence tape and it turns out that it is not what they thought. And rather than just be like, well, where's the correct tape? What's going on? It turns into, oh, so I guess the charges are just dropped then, right? And I guess it's supposed to be, if the tape isn't here, then you don't have any evidence at all. But there's no particular, like, what happened to, how could you make this mistake? You know, there's no, like, questioning about that. And so, long story short, the dudes who were going after Wallace, not only are they let off, but then they become kind of like friends with Veronica. And I use friends in the most loose terms. They are an ally that she doesn't really like because they are really gross, sexually harassy, rapey, pervert, shitty D-bags. All right, let's talk about the rape, because that was unexpected and really upsetting. Oh, thank you, Agnes. Weevil is the biker boss. Weevil. What a fucking name. After everything goes south with her father, Veronica is like persona non grata. The only reason that she had been part of the in crowd to begin with was probably A, because she's super hot. Let's not say that's not a factor. Obviously, in this world, everybody is pretty attractive, so it's not going to be like it is in the real world. But yes, I'm sure that's part of it. But also, her father is the sheriff, and her boyfriend is, what is his name? Looking up here, Duncan. So Duncan, I guess, his family is super wealthy. His father created streaming video software, and so overnight became a billionaire, and everybody around him became millionaires, and they all love him and owe him. And it's just really, like, if you're gonna go after somebody, this guy is the worst one to try and tangle with because he's going to have a lot of people backing him up. I'm wondering if his dad didn't like steal that idea or steal the software or something. But in any case, overnight, after everything happens with her father, nobody wants to be seen talking to her. And she shows up at this party. She's walking through the crowd and everybody's ignoring her. She walks right past Duncan, who has some girl all over him, and he ignores her. And somebody puts a drink in her hand, and she doesn't know who it was. But she takes the drink from this strange cup that just got put into her hands, which I am not victim blaming at all. It's just something that, to me, I just couldn't imagine ever doing. Like, not even worrying. I'm so paranoid about just things that I don't like the taste of being in my mouth, that if somebody hands me something and they don't tell me exactly, and it's not somebody that I trust, I'm just not even going to taste it. You don't even know. But yeah, she drinks it, and it's roofied, and she wakes up the next day in a bed in like an empty house, which is part of what was strange to me. And I know they probably needed it to be that way for the show, but it's like, there should be more people there than there are. And she winds up, or maybe she's in her own bed. I don't think that's her house though, because it was a beautiful home that she was in, and they're kind of, lower middle class. And she's been raped, and she has no idea who by, what happened, anything. The only reason, she's even still got her dress on. It's just that her panties are on the floor, and she realizes what happened. And she goes to file a police report. And the dude, is he the deputy? Who is this guy? At this point, I think her father's already been fired. So she hasn't got a friend here. Oh, he's the sheriff then. Oh, okay. So great. Ugh. And he basically laughs in her face, acts like she's just trying to destroy somebody's life for funsies, I guess, because that's what devious women do, make up rape stories all the time. And as far as I can tell, there is no report filed at all. And apparently this town doesn't have rape kits, because he says you have no evidence. And I'm like, well, you could have evidence, but I guess we're just not doing that. And frankly, after what she went through, it's really understandable that with everything already being a pariah the way that she is, that she doesn't push the issue. She doesn't push to be like, hey, maybe I can get a rape kit done. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can try filing to somebody else who will actually listen to me. Like, there is no reason as a young teenage girl in the position that she is right now, socially, and after what she went through, for her to make a scene. And I really, really get it. That's the kind of thing that if you try and explain it to people who are not empathetic and who can't put themselves in that position, they would just be like, well, you should have said this, you should have done that. It's hard to get across what it's like, not only as a woman, but as a teenager, where you're still feeling like you're not sure that what's happening is really happening. Like, the way that you're being treated, is that fair? Did I misjudge this? Like, there's just so much in that scene, and the way that she acts and how subdued and in shock she is for the whole thing, that really got to me. Like, that for me was a big part of it. There's no moment of her bursting into tears, getting hysterical and losing it. She's just numb and so deeply horrified that it goes beyond being able to cry about it. She has a couple tears roll down her face, like she doesn't even notice it's happening. And that's the extent of it that we have seen so far. And in many ways, that, like, being raped could explain part of why she's changed the way that she dresses. Not at all to suggest that how you dress provokes being raped, but people interpret it that way. Victims will feel like they did it to themselves somehow, and if they hadn't drawn so much attention, maybe this wouldn't have happened, which is 100% not true. Predators go after whoever, whatever they're wearing does not matter. But as a victim, it can be really important to pretend that you have some kind of control over the situation, even though you don't, and that's really scary. And as a control freak, I deeply understand wanting to pretend that you could have done something to fix the situation and keep it from happening. It's almost like I can see both sides. Some people would think it was freeing. No matter what I do, sometimes bad things happen. And if you want to abdicate responsibility, that can feel like but most of us want to believe that we have some control over our lives and control over what happens to us. And the fact that she is wearing multiple layers, hoodies, cut her hair off, and it seems like she's like stopped wearing makeup and everything also. Like she's clearly wearing makeup for the show. But in the flashback, she was wearing lip gloss and like heavy eyeliner and this kind of stuff. I think that could be part of it. And also, I should mention that she was a virgin. So even more traumatic that not only was she raped, but it was the first sexual encounter of her life. And that is how it went. That's fucked up. And it's super gross because at one point Wallace says something to her about like the things. Oh no, Wallace says something, but then later Weevil says something about how the things I've heard about you, he must lay the pipe pretty good. So evidently there are like rumors going around about her now. She was raped and yet it's been turned into something else. Which just is, she apparently like kind of rolls with that when Weevil's like joking about this stuff. She's very easygoing and makes it a joke and is good natured about it. It's hard to know from what we've seen of her, right, like so far, how true that is and how much she's actually come to terms with what happened to her because she never told her father. She was afraid, rightfully, of what he would do if he found out. And I have to agree with her in that if I were her, I don't think with my father that I would have told him. I really don't. And her father, she's clearly closer to than I was with my dad. So it's almost harder in some ways when you're closer to a parent to tell them something that you know is going to flip them out. My dad would flip out, and he and I just didn't even have the particular kind of relationship. So I can only imagine her dad. Yikes. And also the feeling that like she was targeted, and it could be just a random predator that just went after anyone. But it seems pretty clear that she was targeted because of what was going on with her family and because the predator knew that nobody was going to come to her defense. They were aware she was the weak straggler of the herd and there wasn't going to be somebody coming up to them going, "What are you doing?" Stopping them. She didn't have any protection. Social protection. So that also, I think, would fuck her dad up really, really bad. Like, it's not his fault at all. But as a parent, after all this shit goes down, to find out that this happened to her because she like went to a party that she knew she wasn't even really invited to. I think she said she wasn't invited, or that people told her about it but didn't expect her to come. Knowing that she went and this happened to her, there's no way you don't figure that's about you and what you did, right? Like, I have to figure at some point in this show, he's gonna find out, and it's gonna be really ugly. And I wonder if she has any theories on who did it, because I feel like it's easy to just be like, I have no idea. But every day you've got to be wondering, right? And it had to be somebody you're in school with. Either that, or it's somebody who was not in school but wouldn't stand out if they were on the property. So, like, the father, I mean, this party at Duncan's house? I'm just like, I'm trying to think who the hell it could have been. But again, I just want to say Logan because I hate Logan so much. So, yeah, so I don't know. And I'm concerned about her finding it out. She was at Shelley Pomeroy's Another Rich Girl. Okay, thanks, Agnes. All right, so, yeah, God knows, you know, like, does Shelley have brothers? Like, who? So, and there's nothing to say that it was only one person either, which I hate to even go there, but frankly, that happens. And especially when it's somebody that guys are sure nobody's going to give a shit about. Yeah. So it's just like that was a scene and that was a story angle that was really upsetting that I did not know was part of the show. And I feel like somebody may have told me at one point that she is raped, but I either didn't remember or I just didn't realize that it's something that happens like before the show even begins. And yeah, it just sucks. And there's a lot of times where I feel like women being raped is super gratuitous and used as this like easy plot device with shows that feature women, but I don't feel that way about it here, both because the show isn't about her tracking down the person who did it, and because they don't show the rape. They just show her waking up and not knowing what happened, and the very real reaction of the police just being like, bullshit, which frankly happens so often, it's utterly terrifying. If you guys are interested, I left the broadcast feed up, and the broadcast, there's an episode that I did that was a solo episode about false rape reports. And I did a lot of research, and it's really upsetting because people will cite these statistics about how many women lie about rape. And once you look into it, a lot of those statistics are created using data of women who retracted their accusations, and the claim is that women retract their statement because they were lying. That's the implication. However, then there are interviews of dozens of women who were bullied into retracting their statements by police. Essentially, the police didn't want an open case, and they forced these women or shamed these women into recanting their testimony. And so these women are now put down as being liars, when in fact they were simply like abused by the system and tossed aside, and it was made very clear nobody was going to believe them and nobody was going to take this seriously. So it's a really, like, the system is not here to help women. It's just not. And it's really upsetting when you look into it too, how much like domestic violence is actually perpetrated by police. And police are who you're supposed to call for help. But what happens when the people who show up are all on your husband's side and you've got a black eye and they just don't really give a shit? So it all feeds on itself. Stepping off soapbox now. Veronica, when she figures out that her mother is the one that was driving the car that was at the hotel, at first, she's really mad at her father. Like, she won't look at him. He wants to go out and see a movie, and she doesn't even answer him. She just walks away. And then, one night, he's leaving his office, and she sneaks in there. And she knows the combination to his safe, and goes in because she wants to know what the hell he's sitting on, because it feels like he's doing some secret shit. And she finds the whole file on Lily's murder and realizes that a lot of the notes in there and stuff are less than a month old. He's still working on this, even though supposedly they caught the murderer. The man who is accused was a former employee who was fired before the software company really blew up and made money. And they found like a pair of shoes and a jacket or something that had her blood on it in his boat, I think was how it went. Abel Kuntz, says Nancy. Thank you. Backpack and shoes, right? So this guy is on death row. Like, he's at least on trial, right? Refresh me, guys. But in any case, as far as everyone else is concerned, the murderer has been apprehended and this is over. And Veronica's father disagrees and is still trying to figure it out. And Veronica clearly, like, believes her father, like, trusts him. And if he's still looking into it, she thinks there's got to be something more to it. That's all there is to it. And decides that, yeah, he might be lying to her because he tells her that he ran the plates himself and that there's like some corporate espionage shit going on. And so he doesn't want to investigate it because it's too dangerous, yada, yada, yada. And that's when she decides to get up and walk away. But after she finds this file and realizes he's still working on it all, she decides that it must just, he has his reasons for not telling her, whatever they are. And she has opted to trust him, which I honestly really like this moment in the show. This is something that I don't feel is done often enough, which, and I mean this in terms of writing in general, where if somebody is lying to you, to a character, and that character finds out, it usually turns up into a complete blow up with somebody confronting them and being really resentful about it and angry about it. And oftentimes jumping to a lot of conclusions too, based on what they found out, even though they only have a piece of information. And I appreciate it a lot that they don't do that here. They don't have her go on with this like simmering anger towards him. They don't have her second guessing everything and starting to like come to her own weird conclusions based on this one piece of information about her mom. She decides he has his reasons and leaves it at that. And I'm going to go find answers on my own because that's what I want. I can't live with some of the questions, but I'm not going to hold it against him that he didn't want to tell me because obviously he is protecting me from something, or at least he thinks he is. And I like that. I feel like that's not trusting people is a tough thing to get past. As somebody who does not trust people, it's a really strange paradox that I have going on in my brain where I believe a lot of times I give people the benefit of the doubt and believe the best of them in terms of their intentions. But in terms of trust, I don't believe I can actually rely on anyone. I have never felt that way. I've always felt like it's up to me, and if I can't get it done, then it's not getting done. And trusting that somebody else has more information than you and maybe knows better about what to do with that information, that's a really good place to be with a parent specifically. Like, his right hand man, for lack of a better term, right hand girl, is, in some ways, it makes me feel like he's trying to make her grow up too fast. But if she has this kind of trust in him, I take that back a little bit. And because there's definitely points where it can feel like the kid is the parent and is taking things more seriously than the parent, or is just in general, especially on shows that are set in a high school and with high school students, the writing can get a little lazy and make the parents stupider than the kids, which is a really fine line. And don't get me wrong, parents can be stupider than their kids, for sure. But I like that here we have her, and she's an intelligent, capable girl who knows how to handle herself in a lot of ways, but that she still can fall back and let her dad do his thing and not constantly second guess. And I feel like that's a good sign for their relationship. That's the way it should be. We should be able to trust our parents. And I liked that moment a lot. So she decides to let that go, but she's still going to go and find some answers for herself. And what she is doing at the end of the episode is driving to the hotel where her mom is staying and apparently going to confront her. Her mom is a real interesting little, like, side note, because there's a moment where Logan, who is really pissed at her later, he kind of provokes Veronica by pulling up next to her and, like, just taunting her about the fact that they're all going to go surfing at the beach and does she want to come? Like, as if it's the old days and they're all still buddies and none of this happened. He's just fucking with her, right? And he says, I got some booze, and he pulls a flask out and is like, do you want any? If your mom was here, she'd totally want some. Your mom was a woman who could drink. So that's interesting. That this is something that apparently people seem to know, or else he's just, I don't know what, but I feel like that's a detail that the show is letting us know people know. And that combined with the fact that her mom is somehow, like, tied up with Jake is like, is she drinking because of something that she knows? Or did her drinking lead to her doing something that he found out? Like, I'm just really curious about how that could tie in, because her going to confront her mom at the end of this episode wasn't something I had expected. I thought, if anything, if we saw her mom, it wasn't going to be for a few episodes, that there would be this, like, constant low level. But Veronica's mom, like, bailed once her dad lost his job and everything, like, hit the fan. And she thought that it was because of that him losing his job and them losing their financial security was too much for her mother to handle. And also the fact that feeling that her father made a bunch of bad calls. But now Veronica's rethinking that and wondering, is that really why she left? Or maybe it was something else after all. Which, of course, you would wonder when you see her shacking up, supposedly, from what it looks like, shacking up with some dude in a hotel room. I'm willing to bet that it turns out, if they ever did have an affair, that's not what's going on now. But I don't know why her mother would feel the need to come back to town and hide and not get in touch with her daughter. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions in the air on that one. And yeah, just as a side note, because I was talking about Logan, I'm really happy with the moment where Weevil comes up and fucks Logan's shit right up. Because Logan, you're a fucking brat, and I hate you. And yes, I will acknowledge, he was set up by Veronica. And so he has some right to be mad in some ways, because that was, she just straight up planted shit in his locker. I don't know how she managed to do that, but she did. Or maybe she just convinced the person who makes it, because we see her, like, going to the room that they do pottery in and, like, convincing somebody to make it. And maybe they just give it to him and be like, hey, dude, do you want this? And he just took it, so she didn't have to plant it. Whatever the case, on the surface, it seems like he has a perfectly good reason, a valid reason to be angry at her. But he was obviously provoking her and fucking with her before. And we also see a flashback of him asking her what the fuck is wrong with her and her father, essentially. Like, why are you trying to ruin these people's lives? This is my girlfriend who died. And there's something about him saying that and his tears that just felt really insincere. And I don't know if that's meant to be, or if it's because I don't think the actor is very good. We'll see. Time will tell. So, yeah, that's about all I've got to say about this episode. But I was, like, just so much more engaged so quickly than I expected. And I was surprised by how much of the show I didn't know about. Like, I went out of my way to stay unspoiled on Veronica Mars because I had an inkling that I might cover it at some point, like I do with a lot of things. But I don't think I realized just how unspoiled I am for it. I really knew nothing about it. So this has been really fun. And Megan, I believe, is going to sponsor episode 2 of this season, which I will be covering live on Crowdcast next week, Tuesday, at the same time. So, yay, Megan, thank you so much for doing that, because I really want to know what happens. So next week at 4 p.m. Central Time on Tuesday, I will be live on Crowdcast again. And I'm saying next week, like by the time you listen to this, it will be, let's see, August 21st, Tuesday, August 21st, 2018, 4 p.m. Central Time on Crowdcast. I will post on it a event in the Facebook group. Megan R., can you speculate for us? Speculate. Where does it go from here? Any thoughts on the mysteries? Well, I kind of theorized in the episode, but it's really hard to say because her mom, we don't get really any sense of the relationship that they had before her mom left. I have to assume it wasn't great because of the way that her mother left. If she felt okay with doing that, it must have been not super. So I don't really know what happens when she confronts her mother. And sorry, Agnes says tomorrow going to see you to commission the 3rd episode the Tuesday after that. Oh boy, yay! Cool, thank you, Agnes. That's exciting. And so yeah, it like when she goes to her mom, like, is her mother going to be straight with her about what's going on? I don't expect that at all. And I do expect that her going to see her mom will get back to her dad, and her dad is going to feel like a dick for not admitting what he knew sooner and acting like his daughter doesn't investigate shit for a living. And I put for a living in quotes because it's not for a living. But you're training her to do this professionally someday, and you act like she isn't going to figure this out. Come on, guy. Come on. And what do you want to see more of? First of all, backup. I want to see more of backup, please. I do want to see more flashbacks because I need to know how, like, the timing of things and how they happen. Also, here goes the thing. I want to see more of Duncan because I don't get him. We see maybe 3 lines come out of his mouth, and like they're like 1-2 word lines. There's nothing about him coming through for me. I don't get why she was into him. Like, he's cute, but he's not like a knockout or anything. He's kind of just like cute for like a regular real high school cute, but not like Hollywood knockout kind of guy. And I'm just really curious what it is about him that drew her, and get a sense of, is he involved in his sister's murder? Because for all I know, it was him. I don't know anything about him. I get the impression that it wasn't because of him being basically catatonic when Veronica found him. And I don't think he'd be that way if he had just killed her. But people react to things in weird ways, and maybe he would. So I really want to know more about him. And I feel like flashbacks are going to help with that. And I just really want to see somebody kick that fucking sheriff's ass because he kept saying, you need to see the wizard. And I hate it. I hate him so much. That's going to be my shorthand for an asshole. I hate him so much. So, yeah, I don't really have a lot of speculation at this point because it's all very preliminary. But that's about it. Favorite characters. Well, I want to say, like, obviously, I really like Veronica, and I'm glad, because sometimes leads can be almost blank slatey to the point that they're nothing, and you're just like, why am I supposed to be rooting for this person? But I really liked her, and her reaction to certain, like, bits of poking and prodding from people, especially Weevil, were unexpected, and I thought she was being smart about it. I like Wallace, but I don't like that he, like, is like, you should hear some of the shit people are saying about you. Like, Wallace, what the fuck, dude? Maybe just don't open with that? Why are you... So I want to like Wallace, but he's not doing himself any favors. Also, I like her dad, but he's also kind of not doing himself any favors at this point. And And those are kind of like, as of right now, the only likable people that we've met, right? Like, Duncan, we don't know. Duncan's mom seems very angry and bitchy. His father, we don't actually meet. Logan is an asshole. I'm trying to think. And then there's like Weevil and his friends who are terrifying. Logan more or less awful than Joffrey. At this point, less. Logan seems like a brat, but I haven't gotten like a sadist vibe off of him the way that I've gotten off of Joffrey. And I could be wrong about that. But at this point, it takes a lot for me to hate someone the way that I hate Joffrey. Yeah. Cliff the lawyer. Oh, I don't have a sense of him. We only saw him for like a second, right? The one that turns around and gives her like a thumbs up because she changed the tapes out and he like knows it was her. Is that him? He told her to look into the club. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't feel like he's likable. I don't know anything about him yet because he was only like, Megan had to remind me what he even did. His scene is so brief that I didn't even remember that happened. So, but apparently he becomes more of a thing, I guess, later, based on you guys knowing his name. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Nancy, so much for commissioning this. I'm excited to be doing it. Thank you to Megan for commissioning the next one. I'm super excited. And thank you to Agnes for commissioning the one after that. First 3 episodes of the season. This is so cool. And I'm just really excited because I, didn't really know how Spoil Me was going to go. And I'm just delighted to see that it's starting to like get some legs. So thank you guys so much for being supporters and being enthusiastic about this material and everything. It's always fun to check things out when people are super excited about you checking it out too. So, all right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap this sucker up, but I will see you. I will see you next Tuesday. Forgive me. If you come live to the Crowdcast, and the Tuesday after that, Agnes seems to want to host it at the same time. So, yeah. Check me out on Crowdcast and Facebook.com/unspoiledpod, Twitter at unspoiledshow, Instagram at unspoiledpodcast, and unspoiledpodcast.com. I'm going to have an event calendar up on the website, and I will post the events on Facebook with links. And you guys can log into Crowdcast ahead of time and like sign up so that you get a reminder notification when I'm about to go live. And you can also post like questions ahead of time that are there when I start so that I can like, answer some things off the top. Yeah. So, all right, everyone. Thank you all so much. Mwah, big kisses. And I will see you next week with a new episode. Yay! Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.